Welcome, everybody. We're in the Inclusive Digital Finance stream right now, and we are going to be having a wonderful conversation that I hope you will all enjoy around the role of digital finance in the growth of micro entrepreneurs and traders. I welcome you to the session. My name is Sarah Corley. I'm CEO of the Alliance of Digital Finance Associations and one of the cultivators of Pathway to 17 Summit. I'm really delighted to be joined by a wonderful global panel today with much experience in this area, and I know we're going to have a wonderful conversation. So I'd like to just say thank you to Albert Appiah from Opportunity International Savings and Loans, Joseph Kuvor from Boost Ghana, Juan Navarrete from Fundación Capital, and Kim Kariuki from Microsafe Consulting for joining me today. Welcome to my panel.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Very pleased.
So I'm going to go around and ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves very briefly so you know the kind of experience and where they're coming from, and you can see the diversity that we brought to the panel for our conversation today. But just before I do that, I'm going to just focus us in, because when we use the term MSME, we can mean an awful lot of different types of people, from sort of people that are self-employed as an individual through to those who have small businesses employing several people. And also sometimes we use that term for businesses employing even more so than that. So for us to have a conversation that focuses on MSMEs, we as a panel decided to particularly sort of speak about those who are running small, informal kind of shops, the bodegas, the spaza shops, or the market trader, likely selling mainly food or sort of small household items. And so I hope that that focus helps everyone understand some of the conversation that we're going to be having today. So let me go to the panelists in alphabetical order, not by preference, to introduce themselves quickly. So Albert, maybe we can start with you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah and colleagues. I'm Albert Appiah. I work with Opportunity International Savings and Loans. I've been in this space for the past 10 years. I rose through the ranks, being a relationship officer, relationship manager, a branch manager, and now I head alternate channels and deposit. My alternate channels also deals with digital financing, as well as mobile banking, and anything other than brick and mortar branches, though we work through that. So that's me, and I like Scrabble and reading. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Albert. Joseph, let me come to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joseph. I'm CEO and co-founder of Boost Ghana. Boost is a B2B commerce platform that enables distributors and retailers to digitize their operations and grow, creating a digital footprint of their transactions that they can leverage for various financial services, including inventory financing and many other financial services, to enable them grow in the digital economy. My career spanned telecoms, banking, fintech, in roles including consumer and market insight, pricing, commercial propositions, and product development. I'm really passionate about leveraging inclusive technology to empower more people to be able to do well in the digital economy. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Leaving behind Africa for 1 second, let's hop over across to South America. Juan.
Hi, so my name is Juan Navarrete. I'm the president for business and partnerships development in Fundación Capital. Fundación Capital is an international NGO that has worked mainly in Latin America, many countries, about 17 different countries in Latin America. And we've also worked in Tanzania and Mozambique. And what we do is financial and productive inclusion. We leverage mobile digital technologies to be able to escalate our efforts. And we have worked with many different segments. We began working in the conditional cash transfer segment, basically among households in poverty or ultra poverty. But through time, we started doing digital inclusion with other segments, such as MSMEs as well. So very thrilled also to make part of this exciting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but no means least, we'll head over to Kim.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this panel with this amazing team. I'm Kim from Microsafe. We are a boutique consulting firm that's recognized as the world's local expert in economics and financial inclusion, with offices in Asia, in Africa, Latin America, the US. We really try to understand what makes people thrive, what drives their decisions on a day-to-day basis, and then what's the role for financial inclusion to bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to go. In my past, I've been fortunate to work for a microfinance bank. I've also been fortunate to sell fixed products. And in all of these things, I think the unifying and most exciting driver for me has just been seeing how, over time, through different paths to success, smallholders, underserved communities are getting more and more included. But I guess the question, I think why we're all here is how can we make that happen faster? So really happy to be part of this conversation. And over to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you so much, Kim. And to our panelists, as you can see, we have a wonderful global view here, crossing multiple continents, and also views of, we've got NGOs, we've got consultancy, we've got financial services and fintech. So I'm hoping that all of these diverse views together will really have a great discussion about how we can accelerate the inclusion of MSMEs. But to start off with, I think it's great to set the scene and just actually understand really the importance of MSMEs to a country's economy. Why are we even having this particular conversation focused on MSMEs to begin with? And so perhaps we can start off in South America, maybe specifically. I know you did the research in Peru there, Juan. Maybe you could sort of fill us in from that perspective.
Yes, absolutely. We currently have a regional program that operates in Peru, Mexico, and Colombia, which is about digitizing a universe of 50,000 MSMEs. And just to give you a figure, in Peru, for example, enterprises with 5 or fewer employees constitute around 95% of all businesses in the country. And they employ about 47% of active workers. So these are key drivers of the economy. In Mexico, which is a larger country, the figures are a bit different, but they are also very important. These entrepreneurs represent 15% of the national GDP and 20% of the labor force employment. And one of the reasons why this project is very important for us is because when we compare the Latin American region with other regions in the world, for example, Southeast Asia, there are big differences in productivity. In Latin America, the changes in economic growth are attributed mostly to demographic expansion rather than productivity increases. And this is totally different in Southeast Asia, where you really have productivity increases that stem from the use of digital technologies and from the integration of MSMEs into digital economies. So yes, I think this comparison gives some interesting figures that can let us see the importance of digitizing efforts in the region.
Absolutely. I mean, 47% of the workforce in Peru is an enormous figure, and even 15% of the GDP in Mexico, something very important for us to bear in mind. And I'm going to go across to Albert now to find out, from an African and particular Ghana perspective, because that's where you are right now.
Hello, Sarah.
Yeah, what do you think?
No, I can't hear from Juan.
Can you hear me, Albert? Okay, let me go to Joseph next, and then I will try and help Albert get connected again.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And like Juan said, I was looking at Ghana's draft MSME policy that was shared by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and they put the percentage of employment that is coming from the MSME sector at about 80%. And this is way above the global estimate of about 67% of all employment. And so you'd see that this is really critical. In Ghana, it's popularly, we say that MSMEs form the backbone of the economy. And they also contribute about 70% of private sector output. And when you get down into retail and wholesale, we find that nationally, about 18% of all employment is in retail and wholesale alone. And that even over indexes when you look at females. So while it is about 18% nationally, when you get into females, it is close to 30% of employment. Now, and this increases when you get into urban. So within urban females, this is close to about 40% of employment that is coming from retail and wholesale alone. So MSMEs are very critical for livelihoods, for sustainability, for employment, for growth. And anything that we can do to make this sector resilient and make more people participate, we will be doing a lot of good to society and creating impact.
Thank you so much, Joseph, and thank you in particular for putting that gender lens back on our conversation, because that is something that we're going to be referring to a lot in our conversation about actually, you know, particularly this particular segment that we're talking about today in terms of MSMEs. A lot of the people involved within that will be women. I'm going to then come across to Albert, because I hope Albert can hear me now. You're on mute, just unmute yourself and then we should be able to hear you.
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
But I thought for Ghana and Joseph has done it.
Okay.
But you still want me to?
Nope, you're good. We'll come to you with the next question and then we'll pop over to Kim to give us. So Kim, I know that you're physically based in Africa, but you have a view, obviously with Microsoft consulting over at Asia. Would you be able to fill us in from that perspective?
Sure. So let me start off with home base, born and bred in Africa and Kenya. So, you know, it's interesting. Some of the stats as Joseph was talking are fairly similar. So, you know, in Kenya, we have about 7 million MSMEs. In Asia, it's about 10 times that, so about 71 million. In Kenya, when you think of the gender lens, about 30% of those businesses are women, so very close to, you know, what Joseph was talking about. Asia, that's about at least double that, so we could be talking to 60-70% there. But what is really interesting, and I think it's a point that, you know, we're hearing around the room, is that, you know, MSMEs are, you know, contribute in a significant proportion to the economies. I think in both Kenya and Asia, the figure is about 95%, if not more, of all businesses are MSMEs. Where it gets interesting is on the GDP side. So, you know, the MSMEs in Kenya only contribute about 3% of GDP. And in Asia, that's close to like 41%, like 14 times more. And you know, the Kenya story, only because this is home for me, I began to think about, you know, has there been a time in history when women were doing better, when the figures were larger? And then, you know, I began to think about Togo, and I'm sure Joseph and Albert, you know, can talk to this. You know, in Togo now, Nana Benz contributes about 8% of GDP. And at their height, and this was in the 70s, and looking around the room, I think a few of us weren't born, you know, at their height, Nana Benz was contributing to about 40% of GDP. So it just goes to show that, you know, trying to mainstream gender and bring women back onto the table and grow their share of participation in the economy isn't something that, you know, we're just doing now. It's more or less trying to get us back to what the situation has been in some cases in some of these countries.
Thank you so much there, Kim, for that you know, giving that global view. I mean, I think it's really important that in all of the conversations we have, there's never going to be a sole recommendation that works for every single country. You know, actually, the benefit of having multiple people together like this, discussing from different viewpoints, is, you know, picking up ideas and sharing, learning, and be able to contextualizing depending on what your particular country or situation is. So thank you for those insights. And Kim, I'm going to stay with you with my next question. You know, so we're looking at, you know, growing, accelerating these MSMEs. What can digital offer that would enable that to happen? What's the angle here for digital?
Sure. I think, you know, there are a number of things that, you know, come with digital. I think when you think of the promise of digital, it's the idea of convenience, accessibility, and hopefully affordability, so that we can get a new set of MSMEs into the financial inclusion fold. But I think when you think of them as businesses, you know, really, digitization will help to manage financial transactions and hopefully shift us a little bit more away from being cash-based. Because we all know the challenges and the complexities of moving cash around, not to mention the security risks. Digitization as well, you know, will help MSMEs manage their businesses and move goods effectively across. It will also promote access to financial services. And I think, you talk to MSMEs, especially the type that we're thinking about now, Sarah, and a number of them want credit. And this could be an opportunity to open up those opportunities and also increasing customer touch points. If with a bit of time, I'm happy to just talk about a few examples from across, just so that folks understand what we're saying. So in terms of managing cashless transactions, funny enough, like in Kenya, the rollout of digital solutions is ubiquitous now, thanks to M-Pesa and other innovations. But cash is still king. The interesting thing is, in Kenya, we find that whereas women are very confident about using digital channels, the same isn't necessarily true in other parts of the world. In India, for example, we did a study that showed women have much less confidence in using digital channels. But not having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that all hope is lost. In the Philippines, for example, there's PayMaya that during the pandemic rolled out innovations that allowed MSMEs to accept payments from via smartphones, right? In Vietnam, during the same period, a leading bank there, together with MasterCard in Asia, deployed new solutions to help access women SMEs, 51% of whom are women. So I think there are opportunities to really make it easier for MSMEs to participate in the formal economy, and trying to minimize the touch points with cash, are one of those. On the delivering goods efficiently, we have a number of interesting innovations. In China, for example, JD.com is able to use AI and robotics to make deliveries easy. During the pandemic, they supplied over 220 million products. And that's quite a lot when you think about, what is possible and what digital means. Closer to home, you have businesses like Twiga that are connecting suppliers and consumers to products at affordable prices, and shortening value chains that obviously over time have become very complex. When it comes to facilitating access to financial services, there's a lot that's being done here. If I just pick one amazing example out of China, where my bank announced partnerships with over 100 banks to launch contactless loans that support 15 million MSMEs. That's, I guess, the total number of SMEs in Kenya and maybe Uganda and Tanzania combined, if not more. So there is an amazing amount of opportunity that lies in being able to leverage AI to transform how we're doing disbursements and offering credit. And then lastly, when talking about engagement with consumers, it's the interesting things, and I think the pandemic just created this use case for a number of MSMEs that were not necessarily prominent in social media, but also just invisible to above the line communication platforms coming onto platforms. So, whether it was on Facebook or Twitter, it was interesting how even your local grocer would send you a WhatsApp message and tell you, I have fruit available and I can deliver, because they know that you don't want to come to the market. So there's quite a bit of innovation happening, and it's quite exciting that in spite of the pandemic and other concerns, digital is helping businesses leapfrog.
Thank you so much, Kim. You've raised some really interesting points there. I think, as you said, digital really opens doors to other possibilities. When we're with cash and we're in paper-based, there's not really much you can sort of do with that. But actually, creating digital really adds on these new possibilities, adds on new products and services, or opens new doors and creates more use cases. And we're going to come and explore the digital financial services and value chain aspect in just one moment. But I want to go to Juan with a question before we do that, because Kim, you also began to mention one or two barriers there. There are challenges with things like, digital literacy, right solutions. And I don't want to have a long conversation about the barriers, but Juan, the question I sort of want to put to you is, what can we do that would enable us to start to overcome some of those barriers so that we can start to reap some of the benefits that Kim spoke about?
Yes, I think that we've learned a lot in our regional program. We did a lot of piloting during the first and actually during the second year as well. And we realized that adoption is not automatic. It's really not a matter of access to a digital tool. So there is the need for continuous coaching throughout the digitalization journey. As you mentioned, there are a lot of reasons why there is a desertion of the digital journey of many MSMEs. A lot of them are technical. We've seen in the field over 26 different technical reasons. For example, memory problems in mobile devices, a lack of digital literacy, but there is also a matter of trust and behaviors. Actually, many MSMEs, especially male-owned MSMEs, tend to prefer the business as usual attitude when they perceive that they would need to make an effort to change the way the MSME is operating when adopting a digital tool. We did a mapping of the digital journey for many different digital tools, payment tools, also tools to do the digital managing of the business with inventories, for example. And we found out that there are 9 different critical moments from the reception of information and analysis of the digital offering and the decision-making process at the beginning, and then to digital downloading and understanding the full requisites before actually contracting and setting up the digital tools at the end. In this process, only in the first 3 critical moments, 75% of the MSMEs are lost before the decision-making point to use a digital tool. And altogether, only about 5% end up adopting a digital tool by the end of the journey. So what we did is that we devised different tools, but we have one in particular that has been very successful, which is a chatbot. So basically, through a 2-way communication mechanism, we help throughout the journey the adopter with very simple contents and informational aspects, also some contents to create very simple capacities to be able to navigate in the ecosystem. And through this tool, we realized that the adoption rate went up from this 5% to between 15 and 20%, just using a simple chatbot. So we realized that it's a matter of coaching. Yes, there is a layer of capacity building, but in very simple, practical things. And there is also the need to provide a lot of information about, for example, the rights that the user of the digital tool has, also about the terms and the cost of the different digital tools.
So that's really fascinating. I loved how you talked about it as being a journey. And I love how you also reminded us that there are lots of actions and decisions, many of them, that go from when you sort of think I might want to go digital to actually going digital. And if we understand that journey and we understand where the main, pain points or, decisions
the bottlenecks,
are.
Yes, the frictions, the bottlenecks, that's correct.
Then we can design, like you said, like your chatbot, that tool that at that very moment, when someone is having a problem understanding something, that there is somewhere they can go get the information that they need to then move on to the next stage in that journey. That actually it's not one thing. You don't wake up one morning and think I'm going digital and it happens. I think that
is correct.
That timely intervention is incredibly important. Kim, I can see you've got something to jump in there.
No, I absolutely like what Juan has said. And I was going to quickly add that, another challenge sometimes is also how we approach the digitization journey to begin with. We tend to think that, here are a bunch of people who are underserved, let's move them forward. And, it may not be the most effective way. So MSc did a study and showed that when you think of MSMEs or when you think of women and their adoption to digital financial services, it's not a contiguous whole. People are along a journey. For some people, it'll come naturally. For some people, there will be challenges. And so I think part of the solution should also offer the flexibility to walk people along this journey, so that then, wherever someone starts, if they're coming in and maybe they don't have a digital ID and they're using the ID of their husband, how else can they participate? How do we get them up to move them to a place where they feel comfortable, they can interact on their own, they have their own smartphone, they feel comfortable to save on their own, to borrow on their own, etc.
Great. Juan?
Yes, and especially for first-time users, it is really important to give a timely coaching and make the journey the best possible journey ever for them. Because if it doesn't work, if you have a bad journey, then you might just drop it and forget about it. So it's really important with these coaching tools to make them work effectively and in a timely manner, because we don't want them to have a bad experience with our coaching tool at the same time. So it's really very important to have things really fine-tuned before you escalate them.
Yeah, I can see it. The role of trust incredibly important there. And Joseph, I can see you nodding along, because I'm assuming that was similar to a point that you wanted to make.
Yeah, just going to make that point about first experiences. We need to always aim for early wins, so that people's fears are not confirmed when they try it. Yeah, he made the point very clear.
Great. And Kim, back to you.
And I was going to say that trusting is a double-edged sword, right? So trust will help you start using it, but then also trust will propel it forward. So, I had it said that, part of the reason why people trust mobile money transfer services is because when you send the money, it goes and it's accounted for on the other side immediately. Now imagine if you had a message that told you, oh, thank you, the money has been transferred, please wait for 2-3 days before the other person receives it. That already would just compromise on the trust that you need for the system to become self-perpetuating. So I think the importance of trust isn't just so that you people can start, but it's also that fuel that helps the system to get to scale.
I agree, Kim, and that's one of the reasons we have this inclusive payments pathway, here at Pathway, right? So, talking about, that kind of interoperability and payment system is also, and being instantaneous, also is obviously going to be a big important part of that trust. But too big a conversation for us to have here. We'll leave that conversation to happen in that stream. But I'm really glad that you brought it up, because it just, and so there are some things that will go across, depending, doesn't matter whether you're with MSMEs, whether we're talking about youth, refugees, anybody, there are certain things that we really need in our infrastructure and ecosystem to facilitate all of our economic growth and resilience. Talking of digital financial services, we talked about mobile money transfers there, but I want to come and bring Albert into the conversation. Albert, what are the kind of digital financial services that can help these MSMEs grow?
Okay. For us in Ghana, if you look at the broad range of financial services that can be accessed and delivered, these are mostly for payments. We have for credit, we have for insurance, we have even remittances. And then we have the ones for mobile transactions, which can be financial or the otherwise. Because if a client decides that I want to check only my balance or a mini statement, it's not transactional, but it's very important for them to take decision on this. And that is what we have. In Opportunity, for example, we have a cell phone banking solution which allows clients to be able to make payments into their account, as well as transfer from their account onto their wallet. And these are payment platforms that we use when we disburse loans.
And so are you able to take the information about the payments and the money that they're earning in order to then offer them new products and services such as loans?
Yes, because we have a data that backs it. On a monthly basis, we see the number of transactions. We're able to break it down because we have different loan products. We have one for agri, we have some for trade, where it differs between the SMEs, because that has a value, and then the micro, which also has a value. And it allows us to have insights into which one is growing and which one is not growing. And the ones that are growing, can we tweak it to give them more features so that it can serve them better than we were previously doing?
Mm. And Albert, I'm guessing before the digitalization of this, it was almost impossible to know what your MSMEs were doing out there in the field.
Exactly. It was very difficult. We just only have to look at the quality of the portfolio. And that was the only thing. But it could be wrong. This year, for example, we hear within the agri sector, the yield is very good, but the rains are setting. It did not stop when it's supposed to stop so that they can dry the beans and then sell and pay back the loans. So now if they encounter bad repayment, would you say that because of that, the agri loan product is bad? No, it could be because of a factor that they cannot control and which is outside them, and therefore they could not meet the repayment on time. But if you give them space and the rain stops, they can do it, because we dwell on more the natural weather than using the Ivory Coast or Ivorian method of doing cocoa, which they use factories to dry up the beans and then sell so that they can do the repayment when they get the yield repayment.
Thank you, Albert. That's a wonderful example of how that information that you have on your clients, but not only that, but also the other information that digitally that also becomes available can enable you to custom and tailor products and services, and also have the empathy about knowing around, repayments issues, and to sort of, rather than force clients into debt or have, black marks against them, actually be able to provide supportive digital financial services. That's a wonderful example. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Joseph, I'm going to come across to you now, because Boost is doing something really interesting in trying to help digitize not just not MSME, but the value chain behind that. And I think that also enables this exponential growth that we want to talk about. So what is digitizing a value chain, and what benefits can it bring?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Interesting conversation so far. So I got into this basically from my childhood. My mother occasionally sold in an open market, and when going to the market, often they don't have an idea of what a fair price of their produce is. So one of the advantages that digitizing the value chain does is to generate that data and provide that fair view of what value is to the MSME, and it gives power back to the MSME, and so that they are not very vulnerable. Now, but beyond that, digitizing is actually cheaper because it brings a lot of efficiencies into the operations of the MSME. So, for instance, what Boost is doing is we avail our technology to distributors to be able to manage their customer base, so they would know who is their customer, where they are, and have more information to be able to understand their customers and their history. And we help them to be able to connect with these customers, to be able to generate orders, to digitize their catalog, so that now their market is not limited to their physical location, but through the digital catalog, they can reach out to as many people as possible, and they can leverage the power of technology to be able to market their businesses. And this is really powerful. And through that, they are able to obtain real-time visibility and transparency about their businesses, whatever all of their agents are doing, they can have that visibility as well. So this is to the distributor, and a lot of their processes, including how they receive payments, how they reconcile those payments, and how they are able to manage their maybe receivables books, and just generate as much data as possible to know who needs what types of payment term, for instance, allows the distributor to stay in control of their business and to expand it. Now, to a small retailer who is a customer of a distributor or an FMCG manufacturer, now going the digital route and transacting instead of walking just physically to buy from over the counter and not leaving any kind of digital footprint, allow this distributor to generate this data trail and a footprint that the MSC retailer can then leverage later to access various services. Now, I was talking about Ghana's draft MSC policy, and in that policy, one of the key constraints that was itemized and was seen to be more prevalent in the smaller the organization, the more prevalent the pain point of access to capital. Now, it doesn't mean that the capital or the credit facilities are not available. It is available. However, the knowledge about it, the attitudes towards it, and some of the requirements to be able to access and use those facilities are often beyond what the small micro MSC can afford. They ask for certain collaterals, and I'm sure Albert will identify with some of this. And sometimes the financial institution actually want to be bold and be very relevant, but the context of the MSME with no data, with nothing at all, and the type of structures from which they operate does not allow a professional financial services provider to say that I'm going to be able to avail these services to you. But when they are digital and they have this record that I am able to buy products at this cadence over this period, and this is a trend, and this is the trajectory of my business, then a financial services provider can leverage that data to either credit score you and then determine your credit worthiness and lend to you. And we find that those who access these services tend to be able to optimize their capacity in terms of shelf life, in terms of what kinds of inventory to hold and for how long to hold the inventory, even how to price it so that they can increase their turnover and make their businesses more resilient. And on the front of resilience now, access to credit facilities especially helps the MSCs to stay really resilient. Now, oftentimes when we talk about resilience, our minds easily go to climate issues, conflict issues, but it is at a micro level, it is beyond that. There could be some factors like maybe there's a sickness, an illness, and a medical bill that the owner, oftentimes there's maybe a husband and wife, and they don't have enough savings to be able to take care of those kinds of emergencies. Or maybe there's a funeral, which is a big deal in Africa, which can knock them out of business if they don't have any way of handling these things. But a digital footprint allows you to be able to have a conversation with service providers because they know the fundamentals of your business because of the data that is there, which allows them to stay resilient. And then beyond that, there's the sustainability of when you speak to maybe even a distributor or a micro retailer, they feel like they know a lot about their businesses. But a lot of that information is in the head of the owner. It is in the person who is running that business. So when they are not there, if there's some that takes them out of location, or unfortunately they pass on, then all of that intellectual capacity, everything they know is gone, and there's nobody who can pick it up and run that business as a going concern. But going digital enables that kind of sustainability to be attained. So the benefits are kind of endless, and we find example that there are more women, for instance, in the MSC space and in the retail space, right? Now, digitizing these value chains allows us to make the digital innovations very relevant to the day-to-day operations of the women and of the people. So they are for a lot of them, their first experience with digital services is through these activities. And once it works for them, it gives them more confidence to go ahead to try other services. So Kim was sharing that this digital services opens a world of opportunities to them. So that first experience, if it is somebody who is selling in the provision store or who is selling in vegetables, and the person manages to be able to order a product and the product is delivered, then they have the confidence that this works. And then they can go ahead to try to save. And once they save, they keep the money within the ecosystem and float increases, and these can be leveraged to provide facilities to many other people. And in summary, digital is even cheaper, like for our, so the benefits are enormous to them. And we just need to be able to keep driving it and get more women involved, more youth involved, and the economy at large benefits.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sir Joseph. I mean, you talked a lot about, you know, how digital gives you data and information, right? And it enables the MSME to think about what they price, how they price what they sell, the turnover, kind of the profit that they can make, and that kind of then savings that then they can invest into other things. Also, you know, that then leveraging access to other financial services or products. And you know, that what's really exciting is it reminded me very much of what Juan, you were talking about earlier, about that journey, right? Providing them with the right training and support, but also we need to, at the same time, a layer on top of that, providing them, you know, the information, knowledge, and, you know, along that journey, so that they can go from perhaps, you know, many of these, you know, are not making much money at all, but to actually then be able to start to see their own business grow. We are almost at the end of our conversation, so I am very quickly going to ask each and every single one of you just to do a quick 30-second recap or key message that you'd like our participants to leave the session with. Juan, I'm going to start with you.
With me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my key message is that digitizing MSMEs is a process that requires patience. It's not automatic. It's not a matter of just simply providing access to a digital tool. It's much more than that. It's providing information, and it's providing capacities, simple, very practical capacities. And to the extent that there are tools that can help and coach along this process, I think that we can all be substantially more successful in the adoption of digital tools.
Thank you very much. 100% agree with you. Let me go across to Albert next.
Sarah, for me, there's a need for MSMEs to go digital. But what we practitioners should do is to manage the change. We should let them understand the need for them to go digital, and then the advantages that will come. The small wins we should celebrate. In Ghana, most of them are to do with the credit giving tools, the payment tools, as well as the saving tools. Once they are able to know why it should be this, it will bring them lower operating costs, and they could be in business. And when they come for credit, we will be able to say, yes, this is you have a sustainable business, and therefore I can extend the credit to you for a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Albert. I love that, a better tomorrow. Joseph, let me come to you next.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think my message is that like nobody actually cares about digital or technology. People have problems they want to solve. They have needs which needs to be fulfilled. So long as our innovations and our tools address these, and we communicate or articulate the benefits clearly to the people and help them in the process, we will get there. So the onus is on us, practitioners, policymakers, to make sure that we keep this at the back of our minds and in all that we do, and then we will get there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Great point there about remembering customer pain points and needs. Kim, over to you lastly to close and wrap up for us.
Sure, thank you. And thank you all. I think for me, what really stood out is we really need to be serious about addressing fragmentation at a user level, not a farm level, not a policy level. If truly, digitization is going to make financial services accessible, affordable, and convenient, and at scale for the millions who need them to grow their businesses and move their lives and their families forward.
Thank you so much there, Kim. We did have a question about regulation and policy that we didn't quite get round to in our time, but thank you for at least reminding us of the importance of, the entire ecosystem. So that would be, infrastructure. If we're going to be running digital, we need electricity, we need, internet, we need regulation and policy to harmonize this, as well as products and services that reach the needs that actually are easy for people to use and they can trust and that bring the benefits that we've talked about today. We opened our conversation by reminding ourselves, the importance of MSMEs to countries' economies, to individual people's families and incomes and daily lives. And I hope we've left a message and some inspiration to those who are listening to us to help encourage, support and drive MSMEs to digitalize, because we genuinely see there are many benefits for them, for the economy, to do so. Thank you so much to Kim, Juan, Joseph, and Albert. I've had a wonderful conversation with you. I think we could have talked much longer, but in the time that we've had, it's been wonderful. And thank you also to our attendees for listening to us. And I look forward to seeing you all on the last few calls that are happening for Pathway for the end of day 3. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, bye.